Hello, Coolman229 here, another Topic of the Week video. This week I'll be talking about Kylo Ren and why he sucks compared to Vader. This week's topic was submitted by Angel89 and her topic is, could end up controversial, but why is Anakin/Vader a better villain than Vader Clone Kylo Ren? What makes him more sympathetic, more threatening, more intimidating, more interesting, just overall better written, and a villain you can enjoy and find sympathetic, still not justified in what he did, but can take seriously as a whole? Why does Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader work when his knockoff Ben Solo / Kylo Ren fails to work narratively? Alright, so Kylo Ren was, before The Force Awakens came out, there was a lot of hype and mystery surrounding Kylo Ren. Who is he? Like, what are the Knights of Ren? What's his deal? Why is he obsessed with Vader? And I was excited, and I remember before The Force Awakens came out, I was always talking with, Angel89 about, theories about who it could be and what we were kind of expecting to see, and, I was actually kind of excited about it. Now, I had fun theorizing a lot of the different ideas, and I loved the idea that there was this new Sith that was, like, obsessed with Sith and was modeling himself after them, like, specifically focusing on Vader. That was cool. I like that. He's like a Sith fanboy. Then we watched the movie and oh boy. The problems with him in the movie are, well, it's the writing. The writing of The Force Awakens was absolute trash. And, I mean, Kylo Ren is a big problem. A lot of this does stem from him being Ben Solo, and Ben Solo is such a stupid name. He's supposed to be the son of Han and Leia. The only child, apparently, because they didn't have any others, because, oh, Kylo Ren ruined their marriage. Oops, Kylo Ren completely trashed their entire relationship and caused Han and Leia to break up. So shoot, if you loved them in the original trilogy, oops, they're broken up now for some cheap drama that barely is relevant to the story. Then you have Han losing all of his character development and going back to being a smuggler. So if you loved his development across the original trilogy, oops, that's all flushed down the toilet. And shoot, I talked in a video about, how a lot of, Kylo Ren was propped up compared to Luke, particularly in The Last Jedi. But shoot, everything that Kylo Ren does screws up everything. Everything about his character just screws up, the new Star Wars trilogy. I mean, shoot, he kills Han. Yay! You killed off one of the most popular characters in the franchise. Am I supposed to be supportive of that? I remember even before I was actually really hardcore, like, critical of The Force Awakens, that was something that pissed me and Angel off when we went to see the movie. Because, holy crap, that was awful. That was stupid. And that's really, like, even if everything else was the same, killing Han Solo basically killed any chances of their trilogy being good. Because that's the direction that they were going in. And thanks, Kylo Ren. I guess we had to have someone die to replace Obi-Wan because we're just copying A New Hope. And yes, while Vader did kill Obi-Wan, it was specifically a sacrifice on Obi-Wan's part. And also, we didn't have a whole lot of the movie to really get truly attached to Obi-Wan. It's not like we spent an entire trilogy of a movie watching him grow and develop into being a better person and someone who got together with Leia, who turned around and went back to help out his friends, became, one of Luke's closest friends, and then you kill him off. No. I mean, we only got the prequel trilogy with Obi-Wan much later. And even then, it all ends up making sense. But, no. Han's death was stupid, and it's one of the things that really pisses me off about Kylo Ren, is that it's like they don't understand how these things come across. I mean, the reason that Vader is sympathetic is that they don't try to force being sympathetic towards him from the get-go. Like, yes, okay, Kylo Ren starts off intimidating in the beginning of The Force Awakens. Ordering a slaughter of the village, killing that old man who no one can remember the name of. And then he stops the blaster bolt from Poe, and he interrogates Poe, and it's intimidating. Then he takes his mask off, and you see his face, and Vader didn't have his mask taken off, and you didn't see his face until the end of Return of the Jedi. Because they weren't going to humanize him until after he stopped being a villain. They weren't trying to force a human element on him until they didn't force it at all. It was a natural development of his character, and it only came out really in Return of the Jedi, and especially near the end, when he's talking to Luke, and he goes up to see the Emperor, like when he says to Vader, basically to come back to the light side, and Vader says it's too late for me. And that to me was a very sympathetic moment, because it's Vader starting to realize, yeah, maybe he doesn't really want this, but really, how can he go back after all the horrible things he'd done? And that's sympathetic. He doesn't see himself as worthy of redemption. It's not until the very end, when Luke is being killed by the Emperor, that he turns on the Emperor and in some way redeems himself. With Kylo Ren, it's like they're trying to force this, I feel the struggle of good in me. And that it sounds more like whining. And when he kills Han to make himself more evil, to secure himself in the dark side, that kind of makes it a little difficult to buy that he's feeling a struggle and feeling the pull of light. No. If he's feeling it, he's going so hard in the other direction, he becomes even worse. Like, I find Kylo Ren less sympathetic than Darth Vader. Because they're trying so hard to wipe away, particularly in The Last Jedi, they're trying to wipe away the fact that he's a monstrous mass murderer. Yeah, in the original trilogy, the only person really aiming to redeem Vader was Luke. The story treated him as a bad guy. All the other characters treated him as a bad guy. But it was Luke who was desperate to redeem his father, who sensed that bit of light in him. And unlike Kylo Ren, where they actually have him just go, I feel the pull of light. No. Vader denies it. And that's why Luke has to pull the, search your feelings line on him. Vader's resistant to it. I mean, Kylo Ren is resistant too, but at least Vader doesn't sit there and whine going, I feel the pull of light. Alright, die, Han. Yeah, it's like everything about the way Kylo Ren is written. Okay, it doesn't make him sympathetic. Even when they get his dumb backstory that's supposed to be sympathetic in The Last Jedi, and he's like, well, I thought Luke was trying to kill me, so I murdered all of his students, turned others evil, and then burned the temple down. And then I became a mass-murdering space Nazi, and, ooh, yeah, you kind of lost us with the mass murder part. Everything after that is kind of a blur. But even before that, what you see of, Kylo Ren is, just evil. Except for the almost token lines of him feeling the pull of light. Yeah, it doesn't really work for being sympathetic. And shoot, Vader is intimidating because, well, for a lot of reasons. First off, he doesn't mess around. He's always pulling crap on people. And shoot, his whole, the trap that he pulls on Cloud City, when, he traps Han, tortures Han, has Han frozen in carbonite so that he can be carted off, and, then ends up fighting Luke and cutting off his hand. It's like, yeah, he's kind of intimidating. Also, he has that black mask in the suit that you see him in all the time, and like I said, the only time you see him without the mask is at the end of Return of the Jedi. Kylo Ren, they have him pull his mask off as soon as they can. Kind of reduces the intimidation factor. I would say that if you really wanted to wait, the proper moment to have him be humanized would be the bridge scene, where he takes the helmet off. You have him take the helmet off for the first time there. That way, the first time you see there's any kind of, pull of sympathy or humanity from him is a scene where they're trying to invoke that reveal. That would be a better place to do it. Now, obviously, I wouldn't write the bridge scene the same way, and I wouldn't even have him be related to Han, but if you want to have an equivalent of that scene, that's the time to do it. it kind of reduces his intimidation factor. Another thing that reduces his intimidation factor is the fact that he's a freaking brat. He's a man who's 30, but he's acting like a 12-year-old throwing a temper tantrum. No, not even a 12-year-old. That's offensive to 12-year-olds. He's acting like a 5-year-old throwing a temper tantrum because they didn't get their Lunchables. How am I supposed to be intimidated by a villain who throws temper tantrums like that? And it's one thing to have this, like, repressed, boiling anger that could be intimidating if unleashed. But having him screaming, "Argh!" and just destroy stuff? I mean, sure, yeah, that one scene where you see the stormtroopers, walking by and then, they notice Kylo Ren's destroying stuff and then they turn around. That's funny. But you shouldn't be putting in jokes that undercut the threat of your villain when you want him to be intimidating. Also, the fact that he gets beaten by Rey at the end of The Force Awakens kind of reduces his credibility as a villain. Vader didn't lose to Luke until the end of Return of the Jedi, the third movie in the trilogy. I mean, I know a lot of people, even people who weren't really heavily critical of The Force Awakens, were still going, okay, but where do you go with Kylo Ren now? Like, what does Rey have to accomplish, really? And shoot, in The Last Jedi, boom, Snoke's dead, and Kylo Ren takes over, but Rey's already beaten Kylo Ren in the first movie, without any training, without touching a lightsaber before. She turns it on and instantly becomes a Jedi Master. Where do you go? Well, shoot! Every which way, apparently, according to The Last Jedi, just whatever way except the most logical. But it doesn't make him intimidating. It's like, oh, and the shirtless scene doesn't work for intimidation. It really doesn't. And overall, he's not a very interesting character. He's really not interesting. Vader's interesting because as the original trilogy goes on, you start seeing these more, elements to his character are revealed. Okay, and we learn Vader's a bad guy. He helped, kill the Jedi. Alright. And then in Empire Strikes Back, you start getting the fact that, oh, he's Luke's father. He is Anakin. Oh. And then you start getting into Return of the Jedi. There are some conflicting emotions in him about what's going on, about his son. And it starts peeling away a little bit more, but doesn't flood it with, oh, here's his personal story. Please feel sympathetic for him. Yeah, because it feels so hard, like they're trying to make Kylo Ren interesting. Look how interesting Kylo Ren is. That they're doing so much to just give the illusion that he's interesting, rather than Vader, who organically developed across the original trilogy. Yeah, I feel more interest in Vader when you see a villain who you slowly start getting some more personal and sympathetic elements to his character. And, of course, then when you get to the prequel trilogy and you actually see Anakin and you see a lot of the struggles that he had and a lot of the issues that he had, which ultimately led him to becoming Vader, you do feel more sympathy for him. And he does become a more interesting character. But the fact is that they're trying to squeeze this in with Kylo Ren. And they tried to do that in the first movie, and then they're trying to make him more sympathetic in the second movie. And it just doesn't work because they're trying to force it. Look how sympathetic he is! Oh, well, he does commit mass murder regularly and still doesn't actually change. At the very least, Vader made a legitimate, sacrifice to save Luke at the end of Return of the Jedi. It also doesn't help the fact that, Kylo Ren is just nothing but knockoffs. Basically, he's nothing more than a Jason Solo knockoff with a Revan mask. That's basically what he is. But he's a Jason Solo knockoff with a Revan mask taking the role of Vader. It's so bland and uninteresting. No, I don't find his character interesting because you're trying to copy so many other characters that Kylo Ren doesn't really have a character of his own. And honestly, Jason Solo, a lot of people didn't like that. A lot of people didn't like him turning to the dark side. A lot of people didn't like that. And frankly, anytime I hear someone bring up Jason Solo, it's always something negative. So not exactly the character that you want to be pulling from, honestly, I mean, shoot, make him his own character. I mean, if you wanted to have him, modeled after Sith, make that part of his character. Like I said, that was what I thought he was going to be. That's what seemed reasonable for the story, is to have a Sith, a wannabe, who's, like, obsessing over the previous Sith. That would actually give, legitimacy to him, copying, Vader or Revan or something. Like, hey, yeah, he's trying to be them, but he's failing. You can even have him be more sympathetic by having him struggle with the light side and having him obsessed with the dark side because he's trying to be bad and he thinks that, this is what he has to do. But they don't really do that. And it makes his character boring. He's so one note, and I remember rolling my eyes, whenever they tried to make him sympathetic in The Force Awakens, and just like, they were trying to force it. They were trying to force him to be an interesting and deep character, and it just didn't work. Even Anakin Skywalker, in his worst moments in the prequels, was a million times more sympathetic, more interesting, more threatening than Kylo Ren ever was. And a lot of people always want to say that Anakin was just nothing but a whiny brat in the prequels, but then I see these same people defending Kylo Ren, who's actually a whiny brat, and say he's an interesting and complex character. Anakin had problems. And you weren't supposed to be looking at Anakin going, "Oh, you little babu." No, like when he's complaining that he's better than some of the Jedi Masters, and that they don't appreciate him. Yeah, Anakin's got some weird issues. Anakin's got an ego, when you see that quite a bit in the prequels. And then when he kills, those raiders on Tatooine in Attack of the Clones, and then he basically just rants about it to Padme, a lot of people are like, "Well, he's so whiny." Meanwhile, Kylo Ren, who's actually throwing temper tantrums, isn't whiny. Yeah, Anakin committed slaughter, and he's having an emotional, mental breakdown over it. That's not whiny. That's just him trying to come to grips with that he committed serious murder, genocide of them because of what they did to his mom. I mean, I honestly, after rewatching the prequels numerous times, I still don't get why some people think that that makes him a terrible character there. I actually feel for him there, and especially when you see him murder them. He's intimidating. This is Anakin going unhinged. And then when you see him become a Sith, and sure, I always used to think that him becoming a Sith, becoming Darth Vader felt a little too quick. I don't really have as much of an issue with it, but when you see him being Darth Vader, when you see him killing the Jedi, when you see him marching on the Jedi Temple with the clone troopers, he's intimidating. When you see him just slaughter the separatists on Mustafar, he's intimidating. I wouldn't want to mess with him. And in his conflict with Obi-Wan, yeah, the dude was straight up unhinged. It's like, but even his worst and most awkward moments in the prequels are still more sympathetic and intimidating than Kylo Ren ever was. So even if you compare a version of the character that a lot of people hate, Vader is still better than Kylo Ren. Also, something else I have to talk about. Kylo Ren's backstory is just a stupid, cheap, dirty copy of Anakin's backstory. It's a really lousy copy-paste. Anakin, who was a child, who was manipulated by Palpatine for years, who was, tricked into, siding with the dark side and becoming a Sith Lord and killing, all the Jedi. And you have Kylo Ren, who was supposedly manipulated by Snoke, for years, tricked into becoming to the dark side, and then slaughtering, the Jedi and destroying the Jedi Order. It's the same thing, except Kylo Ren's version completely misses any of the sympathetic elements of Anakin's backstory. Anakin was a slave. Kylo Ren, or hate to say this name, Ben Solo, grew up with the parents who are war heroes. Leia was a significant, important member of the New Republic. Han was a general for the rebellion. You're telling me that in that privileged upbringing, that somehow that makes him more sympathetic than a kid who was a slave, who was brought into the Jedi Order and basically forced to conform to a set of rules that just didn't work for him and actually caused him to have some emotional issues? No. Anakin's manipulation by Palpatine, especially when you see it and you know just how long Palpatine spent manipulating him. Like ever since Anakin was a little kid, Palpatine spent over a decade just manipulating him and, molding him into, to be his eventual, apprentice. And then you have Snoke, who we still don't have any true understanding about what exactly Snoke did. And if there's anything in the books, yeah, I'm going to discount them. Because, you want that to be part of his character in this new trilogy? You put it in the movies. Don't put all this important backstory in the books and then expect people to go and read all those books, all those comics, all those everything. Especially when, the movies are going to ignore it anyway. But no, you can't put important information in expanded materials and expect that to, just be good enough. No. Kylo Ren's backstory is like Anakin's, but so less sympathetic. I don't care for him. Despite the fact that everyone wants to rag on a kid actor and rag on Anakin for being dorky in for the Phantom Menace, his backstory as a slave is far more sympathetic than anything from Kylo Ren. I don't feel sorry for a spoiled rich kid who was actually rather privileged, having extremely important, politically powerful parents, who was related to Luke Skywalker, who started the new Jedi Order. And then he decides to turn evil because... Yeah, no, I don't believe the whole... Well, he thought Luke was going to kill him. Well, aside from that being radically out of character for Luke. Yeah, that doesn't make him sympathetic. He doesn't even talk, he doesn't even argue or anything about it. He just instantly becomes a mass murderer. Yeah, you're kind of proving Luke's whole I thought he was going to be evil thing, right? Instead of us feeling sympathy for Kylo Ren, we start feeling sympathy for Luke in that instance. Because, yeah, he should have killed him. Even if it was out of character. And that just comes back to them trying to force sympathy on Kylo Ren, and it ends up backfiring and making him less interesting, because the writing in the sequel movies is absolutely atrocious. But yeah. Everything about, Anakin and his time as Anakin Skywalker Jedi and his time as Darth Vader Sith, everything about him is far more interesting, complex, and sympathetic than anything from Kylo Ren. It's also because, with Anakin's character and Vader, there were never any delusions that he was this, this complex baby who's just a little lost. No, the movies treated him as a villain. And it treats Anakin's fall to the dark side as, in the prequels in Revenge of the Sith, as, a selfish move done entirely to save Padme, but ultimately it ends up backfiring and he's the one who ends up causing all the problems. Yeah, he's not portrayed as sympathetic for that. Even when he's being burned alive, the sympathy is more on, the sympathy is more on Obi-Wan, and then for Anakin, it's more pity. It doesn't sit here and go, Anakin, you're being burned alive because you became an evil, monstrous Sith Lord. Oh, but I still feel sorry for you. No, you really don't feel sorry for Anakin because of what he did. You feel sorry for how far he'd fallen. And you feel sorry for him in Return of the Jedi when he actually does express some, regret. And he actually does do something selfless and sacrifice himself to save Luke because he's his son. What do you have with Kylo Ren? Yeah, I can't really think of anything that would make me feel sympathetic for Kylo Ren. Even the bond he had with, with Rey in, the Last Jedi, that doesn't make me feel sympathetic for him. It just makes me feel weird. And especially the shirtless scene. But, and it just makes me question, why aren't we getting her training with Luke instead of this? But ignoring the overall writing of this, Kylo Ren's just not an interesting character. He's not sympathetic. He's not complex. I don't even find him remotely intimidating anymore. Sure, yeah, in the trailers he looked intimidating. And sure, yeah, in the beginning of The Force Awakens he was intimidating. But it's like they're trying so hard to turn him into Vader, who people do care about, that they're forgetting all of the build-up that Vader had, even in just the original trilogy, that he had before he did anything that was remotely sympathetic or expressing any kind of sympathetic feelings. It all comes down is that they're trying to capture what the original trilogy did, and they're failing. And Kylo Ren fails in pretty much every way. Well, I think that about wraps this one up. Yeah. So, if you want to submit a topic to me, you can either comment below on YouTube, or if you're on Tumblr, you can send me an ask and do topic : and then whatever topic you want me to talk about. Just make sure to follow the rules I'll be posting down below. If you want to watch last week's topic video, you can check that out here. And if you want to watch next week's topic video, you can check that out here when I get that done. And thank you for watching.